Welcome to the Economy Magazine at I-24 News, where we provide a daily view on the world markets and the global economy from the Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Well, as we cap off 2015 and now celebrate the new year, we wanted to share our very best stories from this year from across the globe. Nazareth, Dublin, and Tel Aviv. We traveled to a number of fascinating cities, from the vibrant center of the Startup Nation to the dry stretches of the Negev Desert. And we discovered new insights on the world of tech, energy, and even the Palestinian olive harvest. Well, let's get started. Energy, a big topic for the markets in 2015, especially as oil hit 11-year lows towards the end of the year. Now, one area of the sector drawing increasing attention is alternative fuel. From the start, the Startup Nation has been very interested in advancing this space, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu created a special fund to incentivize R&D in the alternative energy field. Our very own Daniel Roth attended a key event at the city center focused on bringing key players in alternative energy transport from all over the world.
In a region whose long history of violence has been fueled by oil, Israel has set out to build a forum for R&D into alternative fuels. The Fuel Choices Initiative is an Israeli government project aimed at seeking out alternatives to oil over 10 years, specifically in the realm of transportation. And this year, the Fuel Choices Summit was drawing attention from all around the world.
So we have here people all the way from Japan to Canada, Brazil, Mexico. And we have here experts, researchers, entrepreneurs, governments, NGOs.
Can your product go?
The conversation was a draw for U.S. Secretary for the Department of Transportation, Anthony Fox, who sees this as an inspirational forum.
There's so many great ideas that we're seeing here, whether they're ideas of alternative fuel inputs into automobiles, or even saw a new wheel. Everybody says don't reinvent the wheel, but actually someone did. And I think these innovations are examples of what happens when either by necessity or because there are needs that need to be met that are unmet. Individuals have the ability to come up with great ideas.
The conversations ran from topics such as the ecosystem of energy and mobility to emerging technologies and new business models, and provided ample space for networking.
The EcoMotion is a community for smart transportation. Our goal is to connect all the people in Israel and also bring people from around the world to connect around smart transportation.
The gathering at Tel Aviv's centrally located and recently renovated National Habima Theater wasn't just discussion, though. The public square was chock full of enterprising transporters seeking some time in the sun for onlookers to learn about the innovations at hand, from bamboo bikes to new electric cycles, and apps aimed at better planning like FanZone, which connects concert and sports event ticket holders.
We significantly reduce traffic congestion. It means that there are less cars, less pollution. More people have a more fun way to get to the event. It means that more people are coming, but there is a lot less traffic on the way there. So that's our little contribution.
Importantly, the Fuel Choices Initiative is a public venture aimed at cutting Israeli oil use by 60% over the next decade. It's a lofty goal, according to everyone involved, but the Minister of Environmental Protection says it's an important one.
As a government, we set up new targets to reduce the pollution in Israel and the greenhouse gas emissions as part of, the UN convention on December. And we set up targets that are not easy to meet with, but we believe that due to technology changes, we are going to do it.
At a time of great environmental risk and opportunity, this summit is bringing together new wheels, new fuels, and new ideas. This is Daniel Roth for I-24 News in Tel Aviv.
In November, we traveled to Dublin, Ireland to join the 40,000 global techies attending Europe's largest technology conference. At the stately Royal Dublin Society on the outskirts of the city centre, robot lovers, poor app developers, and even rich investors from Silicon Valley converged on what was the last web summit in Ireland's capital. Next year, tech pilgrims will converge on Portugal's Lisbon instead, and here's a recap of the summit's highlights.
Welcome to Web Summit. the ultimate stomping ground for techies, robot enthusiasts, and Fortune 500 CTOs from across the globe.
The summit's a great event. It's a huge event, so you really need to look for what you want to get done and focus on that.
30,000 people from 212 nationalities converging in Dublin, Ireland, for 3 days of conferences, networking, and parties.
It's just the biggest one, so in Europe. So basically, it's just like there are more opportunities to meet everyone from all around the world.
Big names in tech tackling the world's biggest topics in tech. Single e-commerce identity, robot ethics, democratizing cloud apps, and why smart homes are so dumb.
And what's really cool, you can message anyone here directly. It's almost like Tinder, but for techies.
Speaking of Tinder, the biggest attraction this year, Sean Rad, president and co-founder of Tinder, also spoke about how his technology is helping people build relationships. And of course, Pepper the robot also drew some attention.
I can listen to your voice for signs of frustration or happiness. Every day I'm learning and striving to become a better companion.
Still, the conference is not as democratic as one might hope. Make no mistake, this is for the elitist of the elite. Tickets costing as much as 5,000 euros a pop. But for those lucky enough to make it this year, most attendees were energized, a bit exhausted, but mostly inspired.
Earlier in the year, Daniel Roth traveled to the West Bank to see how one Palestinian village harvests its olives, the economic heartbeat of the Palestinian society.
The olive harvest holds considerable importance in Palestinian society, and in the 350-person Palestinian village of Susia in the West Bank, the olive is a central facet of life. Despite a rise in violence and ongoing attacks on Susia residents and on olive trees by neighboring settlers, the olive harvest is a staple event. Every year during the autumn months, Palestinian families and communities, as well as friends, come together to shake the trees down and gather their olives.
The Palestinian economy relies greatly on the production of olive oil. In this respect, Susia village is an important building block. Depending on the rate of production, some of the olive oil is designed for sale and some for our own use. This year, we're expecting to see a drop in production, especially because of the continued attack by settlers on our trees, some of which are 35 years old, and this leads to reduced production and a reduction in the quality of olive oil.
شجر عمره 30 سنة 35 سنة وهذا بيؤدي على ضعف الإنتاج في هاي المنطقة.
The olive is a symbol of peace and connection to land in what the World Bank has described as a highly agricultural economy. According to the World Bank, up to 45% of cultivated land in Palestinian territories hold olive trees, and 15 to 19% of agricultural output can come from olives. The majority of the olives go into making olive oil. Good yields and bad alternate by year, and according to Oxfam, the average output was 17,000 tons for the years between 2001 and 2009. Around 100,000 families look to the olive, which is primarily sold in local markets, for livelihood, according to the World Bank report. Beyond its economic importance, the olive is a fundamental part of Palestinian culture.
The season of olive picking is a blessing to us. It's our livelihood. The olive tree is blessed by Allah. But this year, the season of olive picking was met with fear and anxiety. We can't even access the trees and check up on them. We can't predict what the settlers will do to us. And also the IDF. They operate together. There is no safety.
After finding the remains of an ancient synagogue, Israeli authorities have expelled Susia's residents twice from their land since 1986, and they've moved on to different portions of their agricultural land since then. Israeli authorities maintain that the village, which sits on the residents' private land, was built without the necessary permits inside Area C, which is under full Israeli civil and military control. Israel's High Court recently upheld that position and denied a request for an injunction to stop the demolition orders. Even as they face the possibility of another expulsion, agriculture, from livestock to honey making, a jar of which goes for 50 shekels, forms the center of the village's economic life. The risk in reality here has been a rallying point for many over the years in joining Palestinian communities in the harvest.
Yeah, I'm here to stand in solidarity with the Palestinians who live under occupation by Israeli military rule. We were pulling the olives off the tree, and we did that for a little while. And, we were talking while we were doing it. And then at a certain point, we all took a break, and, we all sat down and ate some pita with some olive oil, and drank some tea, and then went back to work.
The olive remains central to Palestinian life, and the olive harvest remains a symbol of the relationships between the people here. This is A. Daniel Roth in the Palestinian village of Susia for I-24 News.
Well, Israel is known for its startup enterprise, but the country's so-called Arab capital also is now upping the spotlight on its startup prowess. And our very own Shelby Weiner traveled to the cradle of Christianity to learn just how the nation's Arab minority is building a reputation of high-tech success both locally and internationally.
Nazareth, the cradle of Christianity, and now some may call it the cradle of Israeli Arab business. The country's largest Arab city is home to a new initiative for the economic development of minorities. Arab Israeli business makes up less than 2% of Israel's booming high-tech sector. 3/4 of Arab-owned businesses are located in the north, far removed from the country center and the heartbeat of the startup nation.
The community and the place and the ecosystem is not mature.
But the city is transforming. Nazareth's industrial park opened 2 years ago with the promise of creating 1,000 jobs in the next decade. And the Israeli government budgeted over 700 million shekels towards the economic development of Arab sectors.
I think it's very important at this stage because it's basically the first fire that could ignite the whole system, and without it probably the engine wouldn't start working.
Government subsidies help fund incubators, accelerators, and the startups themselves. A single grant can cover 55% of R&D costs for a company's first year. The money is needed for many of these projects to get off the ground. Some say investors are hard to come by when you're an Arab in a Jewish state.
To invest in Arab startup, it's not just to check the idea and let's say the market, the potential, and so on. It's also to check more and more the entrepreneur himself, because he's an Arab.
But the investment issues don't end there. Israeli Arab companies are stuck between a rock and a hard place, facing problems doing business with the rest of the Arab world.
Some of our entrepreneurs are already working in the Arab world, but they are not working as Israeli companies. They have to register themselves in, let's say, West Bank or in Jordan.
Startups are forced to register outside of Israel, and many eventually choose to relocate, thus moving the industry and stunting any possible growth for Nazareth's budding ecosystem. It's clear that Israel needs to do more to encourage Arabs to become a part of the iconic startup nation.
And now to our final story. Another growing tech hub in the startup nation is the desert city Beersheba. And to see for our own eyes what's driving global interest in what locals see as a barren and even boring part of the country, we drove a couple hours down to the south to spend the day at the JVP Cyber Labs and also the hub of multinationals now sprouting in the vicinity. In the middle of Israel's Negev desert, an oasis of cybersecurity innovation is blossoming. A number of factors, both local and global, have encouraged the development of this cyber tech center in Israel's largest southern city, Beersheba. A substantial transfer of IDF facilities to this desert hub has already attracted multinationals as they look to stay near the Army's tech-savvy workforce. Ben-Gurion University's fresh pool of talent and the foresight of some local pioneers are also reasons.
What we've seen about 4 years ago is that there is a whole new wave of cyber attacks coming to hit many of the federal agencies as well as the corporations out there, and we thought that's an excellent ecosystem to create a whole new set of companies in that space.
Israeli venture capital firm JVP first opened its Beersheba Cyber Labs office 2 years ago, well before other big names started to take notice of Israel's southern capital. Even a few years ago, camels were a common sight here, along stretches of dusty dirt roads, which now are buffered by shiny new centers filled with IT whizzes, defense buffs, and cyber innovators. Ronen Yehoshua, the CEO of Morphosec, works in the field of polymorphic defense, which he says would have prevented security breaches on companies like Target and Office Depot.
Hackers all the time improve the techniques. They build new types of attacks. The security measures try to understand what are those techniques. They build new mechanisms in order to defend against them, and the attackers learn them and again build a new type of attacks in order to overcome them. So this is a never-ending cycle.
Coronet specializes in the mobile phone and Wi-Fi space.
Everybody protects against the upper levels, the application operating system levels, and nobody is focusing on that world. And wherever there is a world that is unfocused, that's where the attackers go.
Still, Beersheba has long been an overlooked destination in Israel, locals often preferring the lush coastline with its lively nightlife. We're standing right here in the middle of the Negev Desert, and all this cyber tech development that you can see right here behind me actually fits in right along with the government's plan to expand business and commerce outside of the center. Global tech companies are also fueling interest in Beersheba. EMC, Lockheed Martin, Oracle, and IBM have all opened up excellence centers here. And Beersheba is starting to see the same big exits traditionally seen in Tel Aviv. In March, eBay's PayPal bought startup Cyactiv for $65 million. With a sum like that, it's hard not to take Beersheba seriously.